We are live and we are recording.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the West Sonoma County Union High School District Board of Education meeting for October the 14th, 2020. I'd like to reconvene our meeting to open session. And with that, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you look to your right or find the flag in your room and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Is there any discussion or items that you'd like any further information on? Hearing none, I will do roll call. I will start with Diane Landry.
Aye.
Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. Jeannie Broom.
Aye.
Jev Wise.
Aye.
And Satori McCullough.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, we are going to move to input from the public regarding items not on the open session agenda. Is there anyone that would like to have anything to say with regards to items not on the open session agenda? If so, either raise your hand or ask a question in the Q&A, please.
We have one question in the Q&A and it says, why can't we see all the board members? I think
You're all here.
it has to do, you could see them at the top of the screen and I might have to just go play with the settings.
Anyway, thanks for asking. We are
Yeah,
all here.
you
You just heard us all with our vote on the agenda. So we are actually all here in attendance.
If somebody could just let me know if that changed the view for all of you guys.
Okay, all right. So no other, oops, there's more questions it looks
They're
like.
not, they're just telling, we got it, everybody, no need to comment.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. My goodness, they all just, Johnny on the spot they are.
Thank you all.
Good job, public. Okay, so next we're going to move to our consent calendar. Can I get a motion on the consent calendar, please?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Kelly. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Diane. Is there any comment on the consent calendar? Hearing none, I will do roll call. Diane Landry.
Aye.
Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. And Jeannie Broom.
Aye.
Jeff Wise.
Aye.
And Satori McCullough.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, my thing here just jumped on me. Hold on. Okay, so action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session, so no report out necessary. Thank you. Next is our reports. So we'd like to hear from our student board members. Who would like to go first? Raise your hand. Okay, Satori, it is. Go ahead.
I have the report for Annalie. Annalie had his back to school night on September 29th via Zoom. Annalie teachers, counselors, and other staff members created informational videos and offered Google Docs to solicit feedback from parents about their children. On October 7th, there was a special meeting of the board to hear the facilities and operations feasibility study presentation. It was a time to gather and listen to public feedback in preparation for the next 2 town hall meetings. Annalie 2020 students are now able to come pick up their diplomas, which is exciting. Emergency food distribution is still taking place at Laguna High School every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for families in need. For sports, the goal is to have all the sports happen this year. The hope is for all of them to happen at a later date, including winter sports will start in the spring, fall sports will start in December, and spring sports will start in late February. The leadership team conducted their first virtual club fair by sending the student body an email with a list of active Zoom links for each club that interested students could use to check out different clubs. And lastly, the glass fires had an effect on many students, and they were all encouraged to call the attendance office so they won't be marked down for any late assignments. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Okay, Jev.
I will go next. Okay, I have the report for Laguna. So not many activities are going on because, we're still in the middle of COVID, but classes are going really good. There was a back to school night at Laguna as well, which went well. As Satori said, the food handout is still happening at Laguna every Wednesday. Lots of people are coming. It's going very well. I heard from Miss Taggart today that they handed out all the food that they had. So that's going very well, helping a lot of people. Grades are almost in, I think, at the end of this week. The quarter's over, so the teachers are asking students to get all their work in. Classes are going good. I remember last time I said there was a first project for art where they were giving out art supplies like clay and stuff. Art's second project is starting. There's more choices for us to choose from. We can do clay again, stuff like that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jev. Okay, Jeannie.
All right, for the report for Molino. Recently, lots of students have been very vocal in advocating for themselves and what they need during distance learning. The leadership class actually had the pleasure of talking to Mr. Dunkel, and we bounced feedback off of each other and some ideas. And so the school actually implemented some new due date guidelines for all of the teachers. So they've been really cooperative so far, and they're adhering to all the guidelines. And I think so far it's helping the students and making the week flow as seamlessly as possible during this time. Mm-hmm. We have football, volleyball, and cross-country pods that have commenced their sports practices. So I think the pods for football are about 10, similar with volleyball. They're obviously keeping their distance, but we're able to do some outside practices now that the air is better, which is really exciting. We have, a couple weeks ago, we had our first Easing into Elmo meeting, which is the program that the leadership class puts on for the freshmen. We each created a little Google Classroom and we invited all of our group members. And so we had a really nice little meeting about how to be academically successful during distance learning. So we held that during fifth period with the help of teachers releasing their freshman students. We had pretty good attendance. Some things happening in the next week, actually. Well, senior search are on sale now. They're really awesome. They were designed by our senior class presidents. So if you want to purchase them, I think you can contact Hannah Rotoli or Carmel Wilson. This Thursday, we have two really cool events going on. We have at 6:45, the AP government class is holding a community forum on the California statewide propositions. So there's a Facebook event page for it, and the Zoom links will be put up tomorrow night for each respective proposition. We have pairs of students who have been studying and researching these propositions, and we'll be showing a presentation and hopefully giving some helpful information to voters about how they can decide how they're going to vote.
Jenny, what date is that?
That is tomorrow.
Tomorrow night? Okay.
Yeah. There's a Facebook event page. It's it's hosted by Mr. Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. And also tomorrow, especially if you're not a voter or if you already know everything you need to know about what's happening on the ballot this year, I'd encourage you to attend our virtual bingo night, which will be at 7. That is being held by our sophomores, and there's gift card prizes and it's free entry. So definitely check that out. That'll be really fun.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you guys very much. Great student reports. All right, next is association reports. Do we have them joining us? Brian or Lily or CSEA? There's Brian.
Brian, you can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have just a quick report. First thing, we just wanted to thank Tony and Mia for a productive meeting on Tuesday. I thought that went really well. The other thing we wanted to do is talk about encouraging a yes on Prop 15. We need to reclaim billions of dollars every year for our schools and communities, including 1.2 million for our district alone. It's important to close the corporate loophole while exempting residential and agricultural. Because this is a problem that this loophole has had kind of a disastrous effect on state funding. Prior to Prop 13, California's per pupil spending was about $1,000 above the national average. Today, it's over $3,000 below the national average, even trailing the far less wealthy state of Alabama. And so just encourage you that, and part of this reason is because now residential is accounting for a far greater share of property taxes than it used to. Back in the day, residential was 55% of all the property taxes, and now it's 72%. It's worth noting there's a reservation around small businesses, largely based on misinformation. Beacon Economics' recent report concluded that based on their analysis, it seems unlikely that small business owners would be hurt by Prop 15. Their analysis included the impact of the law on those triple net leases. Essentially, they found that the year a property was purchased had little impact on rent prices. And certainly respect the California Farm Bureau, who's come out against it, which I think is unfortunate, but the measure I think is pretty clear that it does not affect agriculture, and it really gets down, it's kind of technical, but use codes, and that anything that it has a use code of agriculture is exempt, which would be all the equipment they use and whatnot. It also could be a great benefit for small businesses because it has a $500,000 deduction on fixtures and equipment. It could be the most massive small business tax break in a generation. So we would just try to stay to the big picture that we are closing a loophole that's had a disastrous effect. It will be very good for schools and communities, and it is long overdue. So that's all we have tonight.
And I did have a question from the audience on showing Brian's picture, and typically we haven't promoted people to panelists. I'm happy to do whatever people prefer. So I think somebody just needs to give me direction. Sorry about that, Brian.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, thank you, Brian, very much for your report. Very much appreciate the information on Prop 15. Okay, anyone from CSEA present and wanting to give that unit? Excuse me?
I think we saw a hand from Julie that she would do it.
I had a Q&A. I just need her to raise her hand so I can find her. There she is.
Thanks, Julie.
And hold on, I'm promoting you to panelists so you can show yourself as well if you like. Julie, I need you to go ahead and unmute.
There we go. I'm all ready.
Yes. And
yes,
you
hi,
can
Julie.
show yourself if you like.
I don't see that option for me, but that's okay. Great, no problem. So yes, CSEA today hosted 2 of the board candidates to come and talk with us and answer questions and just hear our members' concerns and to be informed about how they might be voting for the next board members. And we had a good turnout, and that was really exciting. We have obviously our classified members are back to work, working hard. I know our paraprofessionals are very busy working with the students who need some extra help and just supporting those students, which is really awesome. That's the report I have for you today.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next is board member reports. Diane, do you have a report?
Principal. You know what I just recognized? I'm sorry to interrupt. The principal reports are not on here.
Oh, you're right, they're not. Can I get an amendment to the agenda to add the principals?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, can you tell us who?
I think it was me.
It was on there. El Molino was on there. I think you might have missed it, Jeannie.
No, they're not there.
They're not there.
They're not there.
Principal under reports. El Molino
No.
principal's there.
It says board member association, then board, then super.
The
Yeah.
one I'm looking at says student representatives, El Molino principal, associate representatives, board members, and then superintendent.
Well,
No,
it depends which one I
It's not on. It's not on the version that's online. So Karen, who made the motion for the agenda?
I think it was me.
Let me check.
Let her check. That way we can get it right.
Okay.
It was trustee Landry and trustee Walker seconded.
Okay, Diane, can you
So,
make the amendment?
I amend my motion to include the principal reports.
Ted, can you?
I will second that.
Okay, and then we're going to do another roll call vote just to be absolutely on point. So can we will now, we have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to include the principal's reports on our agenda. Diane Landry,
Aye.
Kelly Noe,
Aye.
Ted Walker,
Aye.
Angie Lewis,
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Jeff Wise,
Aye.
Satori McCullough, Satori?
Sorry, I said aye, but aye.
Okay, didn't hear you, sorry. Jeannie Broom?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Okay. All right. So now we're going to have principals reports.
Hey, Matt and Shauna, can you both raise your hands, please, so I can add you?
Hi,
Thank you.
Allie.
Hi.
Okay, Allie, you're first on my screen, so I'm going to go with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be speaking with you guys. First and biggest thing right now on our minds are grades, because for all the comprehensives, the quarter is not a final grading period. It is for Laguna. So we've had a lot of conversations in the course of the last couple of weeks about the impact that distance learning is having on our overall grading system. And it's been some really powerful conversations too. Around 3 weeks ago, we had about 25% of our kids who were not passing at least one class. And so we are working with each and every kid to try and bring that up. And I think it's bringing a lot of light, to a lot of issues that at Laguna around grading. We historically gave partial credit, but the partial credit was really only to take credits away from kids. So right now we have an agreement that we're not going to give partial credit, that kids will get the full credit for the quarter. So it's an exciting thing for us. We are, and as other people have mentioned, and as a board member might also mention later, we are partnering with the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and it's hugely powerful for us to be partnering with them. This is the 4th week in a row we've done it. And each week we have increased the number of people we fed. So today we fed at least 140, and then we kind of lost count. I mean, we had people streaming in way past the time. We try to always set food aside, and like we were cobbling together boxes to make sure every single family left with something. And it's really important to us because for us, we want to make sure our families do have access to fresh food. But we also at Laguna want our community and we want our families to trust us. And we feel like bringing them onto campus and giving them access to something that they need builds that trust and builds that sense of community. And I do want to send a thank you to Angie, because Angie's come now 2 weeks in a row to help hand out food. So I really appreciate it. And she even brought her mom today too, which is lovely. We had our back to school night, and it was our first one that we've ever, I think it was the first one we've ever done in the evening in like the traditional back to school format. And that was really exciting and really successful. And then tomorrow we have our first school site council. So we've always done one school site council a year. This year we're doing 4, and we are going to look at some data points, and we're also going to look at, relook at our mission and vision statements to revise them. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, Allie. Appreciate that. Great work, by the way, with the whole food distribution. I think that's awesome. Okay, Shauna, you're next on my screen, so you're up. Good to see you.
Hello there. It's really good to see everybody. I was wondering where the principal reports went. I thought, well, maybe they're later. Okay, I'll just stay tuned. So thank you for having us. But it is really nice to see everybody. As Satori mentioned, we had our first edition of our back to school night virtual style. We had approximately 260 people attend our webinar. And for the first time in our back to school history, we did have students participating with us. And it was an eye opener that when we go back to even a slightly more traditional back to school night, we definitely want more student involvement in the communicating of things like drama and leadership and things like that. So that's something that we'll definitely be doing again. Around attendance, I know I've been talking about attendance each and every time, but it's getting better in all ways. So I'm happy to report that. We have our new attendance clerk, Hidalia Garcia, and she has come to us with lots of experience, and she had some great training with Patty Palladini, and she has been up and running. Our teachers are absolutely understanding the process a lot more, and that's because we've stopped changing it on them weekly, which I think is a real benefit. And I hope that they're feeling it as well. At least that's what I'm hearing from them. We have done a lot of communication around attendance, and we are starting to get a lot of calls now into the attendance office to ask questions and to clear things. And so we know that the communication is working, and that feels really great. We currently have 16 students who have a high number of absences, and we have been working and making sure that each of those students is on the radar. So on the radar means that we are calling, we are emailing, their names are coming up at Impact, which is a way that we kind of talk about students who might need some wraparound services. We have some of these students are already working with KKIS, which is Keeping Kids in School. So today we cross-referenced to make sure that no one was kind of being left behind, and every single one of those students is on the radar, and it's all going forward as much as possible. Hotspots. So we have had an influx of hotspots, which has been very helpful. So now every family who communicated to us that they had connectivity issues, like big connectivity issues, all of them have hotspots now. We also have some people who communicated that they had questionable kind of intermittent issues. So now we have been able to, that was my timer for 3 minutes. I tried, I'm gonna go fast now. Okay, we happen to have a virtual club fair, as Satori said. We have a drama club, MECHA, Mental Health Interact, Global Action Committee, a GSA, Global Citizen Club, media production, journalism, and speech and debate. We have athletics starting, and we have our varsity and junior varsity football, cross country, and volleyball. They're not exactly starting, but they are starting the conditioning and following, of course, all of our health and safety guidelines. And we do have some parent nights coming up. We are going to have one night called Annalee 101, which is a webinar that we're going to host. And we're going to try to go over all the different things that we think Annalee families need to know beyond the back to school night. And then we have another parent night in the making. We don't have the absolute dates yet, but we're working on it. It's a wellness webinar for their adolescents at home. And we're looking forward to putting those on. And we also have a movie night coming up, and that is going to be, of course, I wrote it down. Movie night is going to be put on by the Annalee Band and Orchestra, and they are going to watch The Nightmare Before Christmas or Pirates of the Caribbean. So big decisions are about to be made, and I will stop there. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Will you make sure we get those dates of those when they come out? Thank you, Shauna.
Absolutely.
Mr. Dunkel, last but definitely not least. Welcome.
Good evening. Wow. Let's see, I'll yield some of my time, Shauna, if you need it. No, okay. All right, yes, back to school night, huge success. I'd like to thank Diane and Tony for coming out. We had roughly 140 families present. It was wonderful. Teachers were able to do the live webinar as well as preparing their videos for the slide deck. Opportunity for teachers and their families who were present to connect live through the webinar that evening. We had a couple nights as well. So thanks to Woody, and Janet. So just an introduction to the senior year, going over graduation, senior project, other aspects of what the senior year entails. So it was a great night, followed a week later by Cash for College, again targeting our seniors. And we had a wonderful presentation from Margaret Mann at the Santa Rosa Junior College, who's sort of the genius when it comes to the FAFSA. So it was another well-attended evening that helps our families, including my own, go through that process of filling out the FAFSA and preparing to get some money so we can get the kids out of the house. The Molino Education Fund's been going strong. They gave a $100 gift certificate from Sebastopol Hardware to all of our teachers and counselors. So a really generous gift to help our teachers get their home office spaces decorated, outfitted with supplies, plants, things that will make them look pretty. So wonderful. And also a big thanks to Sebastopol Hardware because they've donated $1,000 towards those gift cards as well. So a wonderful gesture on their part. Our Elmo fund wasn't done there. They've approved $2,000 worth of gift cards for culinary students in need so that they can buy supplies and actually participate with Chef May as she's going through the cooking demonstrations. So it's again a wonderful support from the Elmo Ed Fund to help our students truly engage in distance learning. And thank you to Chef May for her continued work there. Yeah, it was a great meeting, as Jeannie said. It was wonderful to meet with the leadership students, to get their input, to really hear from the student perspective, the challenges that they were facing in distance learning, and as well with Mike Rohn in that process, and then be able to talk about it with our faculty and have a really fruitful discussion. And being able to meet the needs of our students and hopefully help them be more successful through the distance learning process is both Shauna mentioned, it is a challenge for our students. We're seeing grades that we haven't seen before during progress reports, and we've begun that process as well of how to address helping our students be successful and helping re-engage those students who have had grades that have been very low, as well as being disconnected through the attendance process and bringing them back. So that's the ongoing process. I think all three of our sites are endeavoring to back So it's been an ongoing process, and we're looking forward to working together as a district beginning next week to start to figure out strategies that will help all of the district students be successful academically as well as social emotionally. Indeed, the athletic pods are up and running. Speaking of social emotional need, more than anything, it brings students together, it reconnects them to the school, and it starts to shed some of those cobwebs off that they're gathering at home, and throw the blankets off of them so they're not in their rooms or gaming during the time, but actually getting them out and being active. Speaking of gaming, one of our counseling interns has started a group for students who may find themselves gaming a little bit more than they normally would. So it's a chance. He himself is a gamer, and so he's going to start to bring together some students and talk about gaming, and try to find ways to maybe break away a little bit and engage in some other aspects of life. But we thought it was a wonderful idea by our new counseling intern, and we're hoping that it takes off and does well for our students. FFA pumpkin carving contest is coming up, which is wonderful, October 20th, hopefully followed the next week by on a drive-through, but we're waiting for some approvals for that. But we're always hopeful. So let's get that going again and have an opportunity for our students and community to be engaged. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate that. Okay, so next is board member reports, and I'll go back to Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hello. At the last board meeting, I talked about how besides board meetings, there's nothing going on for trustees to get involved in terms of students and all of that. Well, I spoke too soon. So since our last meeting, I and Jeannie too, finished the CSBA course, Masters in Governance. It's been a year since we were supposed to finish it, between power shutoffs, fire, and then the pandemic. We are the first virtual graduating class. And that was very informative, of course. I went to each of the back to school nights at each of the schools. Each one was different. Each one was wonderful. And thank you so much to the principals. The Candidates Forum, thank you so much. I want to say thanks to the coalition for providing the candidates night. It was very informative. Also, I really appreciated that each candidate was able to write up something about themselves and could actually, read it rather than just, listening. So, and then this afternoon, it was a SCO at SCO. There was kickoff to administrators, and trustees were invited. And it was all about principals, superintendents, whoever, leading with the heart. And after I heard this 2-hour presentation or hour and a half presentation, that's what Tony Beal is. That's the kind of superintendent she is she leads with her heart. And yeah, thank you, Tony. But the best thing of all were the student voices. The first last month was a forum on called Black Voices, and then just, what was it, last night, the night before, whatever it was, the Latinx voices, and the students share the challenges that occurs at school, but they don't just stop there. They talk about solutions. Their wisdom is so inspiring. It just makes you want to go out there and be with them and learn from them. And that was, I could almost cry right now because it was heartbreaking in some of their stories, but but in other ways it was inspiring. And that's my board report.
Thanks, Diane. Kelly?
Well, that's hard to follow up on. Thank you, Diane. You're just the passion and you're inspiring to me just hearing your inspiration and your connection. So I think my world, I'm still trying to manage through and get used to distance learning and I'm in survival mode. But I do want to shout out, I also want to thank the coalition for putting together a good candidates night. It was great to hear from all of the candidates. And so I appreciate that. And again, I keep saying this, appreciate all the efforts everyone is making and continuing to support the distance learning of all the students, because I know it's a lot.
Thanks, Kelly. Ted?
I ditto on the candidates night. My report is basically acknowledgement and loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, so much has been going on every day. Our Supreme Court justice gave it her all, her heart, her soul, for the life and liberties of our rights of our country. So I wanted to reach out to all the students out there and say, you'll be reading about her forever and ever and ever. Someone we should never, never forget. And in that light, I really encourage everyone to use their right to go out and vote this election. Lots of issues here, all the way from the local level, school board, all the way up to the national level. Please get out and vote. It's your right. We count on you to be the leaders for America's future decision. That's my report tonight.
Thank you, Ted. And Angie?
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
I'm trying new technology. My kids showed me how to plug my AirPods into my laptop. So I was messing with the sound for a little bit. So my report, I went, like Ali said, to Laguna and helped with the food distribution. And I thought I'd just go hand out stuff. She actually gave me a lovely tour of the campus. I got to meet a bunch of the teachers. So we've been kind of forming this relationship, and it's been really fun to A, see people outside of my family, and B, get to know these, teachers. And I saw a couple Elmo teachers coming through. And so it's just been really nice to get out and obviously to help people and provide something that's needed to the community is super awesome. Like I said, my mom came today and she loved it so much she wants to go back. So that's awesome to just tie in more, members of the community. And then I was going to touch on my kids. I have 2 high schoolers, and being able to hear bits and pieces and just it's funny. It inspired me a bit because these teachers are really lifting up these kids. And I think the more they kind of struggled to get in a rhythm, the harder these teachers worked to, at least the ones that I've heard. And the culinary teacher, she's killing it. My freshman is making homemade noodles and he made crepes. I dropped those off at the district office. I was like, I'm not going to fit out my front door pretty soon. We need to give this stuff away. So I took my little guy to go bring treats to the district office. So it's awesome to kind of, this isn't just education. Like, these kids are learning life skills and they're able to share it. And, I'm appreciative that even though these are really trying times, everybody's kind of doing what they can to stay connected and give back when they can. And even having sports start back up. So for the kids that are kinesthetic kids like mine are able to get outside again and kind of do what they're used to doing has been huge for their mental health. So that's just appreciative of this awesome community and, everything everybody's putting in to keep it going.
Great. Thank you, Angie. So my report, yes, Diane Landry and I finished finally the School Boards Association Masters in Governance program. And it's a bunch of different courses that you take with your fellow school board members across the state. Actually, we had people, when we were meeting in person, we had people from LA that came up here because I think they wanted to come to wine country. And our last group was actually pretty intimate. I think there's only 14 of us online. And it was very interesting. We talk everything from budgets to how to work as a team to negotiations and on and on. And it was very informative and very helpful. So I was very proud and very pleased to be able to finish that. I unfortunately, during the back to school nights, I had internet issues and I could do nothing with the internet. We have a feeling that maybe some lines got knocked down or something. I don't know. Finally, it started working after about 3 days, but that was pretty frustrating when you're expecting internet service and you can't get it. So I missed those, but I did get Erin from Anley, the vice principal from Anley. She actually sent me the link from the presentations, and so I was able to watch that way. So that was really helpful. It's amazing what technology can do, and so I was heartened to be able to do that. And Angie and Allie, great job with the food distribution. Good for you. I might have to do the same. I need to get out sometimes, and so maybe I'll come join you on Wednesday. It's a good day for me. So, and I just think it's so great that Laguna is doing this for our community. It's pretty awesome. So thank you very much. What else is going on? I just am really heartened to hear that the sports teams can get out and start practicing. And I saw some pictures on Facebook of kids doing some different things. So I thought that was pretty great. I know myself, I get out into my garden. That's my solace and my fun space. And I couldn't imagine if I couldn't have that to do. And I just was stuck on a computer all the time. So I appreciate that on everybody's efforts. And like Kelly said, I just appreciate what everybody's doing, trying to make the best better and trying to make the best out of this terrible situation that we find ourselves in. It's not of our making, and we all know that, and our parents know that, but it doesn't make it any easier for anybody. And we just have to keep the faith, I think, and keep realizing that everybody is doing the best they can under the circumstances. And I'm heartened to know that we don't have, if we've had some COVID illnesses in our community, it's been small. And I think that's a testament to people getting out there. And if they're out there, they're actually protecting themselves, doing all of the protections that's necessary. So thank you guys very much. And thank you to all of our staff, the cafeteria who's still passing out lunches every day. That's just huge. And I know it's so needed for families. And I've encouraged people who, contacted me and said, I feel really, can I really go do that? And I'm like, absolutely, go do that. It's there for you. And if the times are hard, then you need to take advantage. So I really appreciate just all the little extra efforts that everybody's going through to try to make it just that much better for everybody else. So thank you all. Okay, with that, I'm going to now turn it over to the superintendent. Tony.
Oh, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone's faces in the little boxes on the screen. So I have a couple things I wanted to mention tonight. The first is you've heard several principals talk about the D and F lists. The quarter is ending. We did have progress reports that went out, and when progress reports went out, we did a comparison of the number of Ds and Fs this year compared to last year. And that number has increased significantly from last year's D and F list at the same time. So we are forming a district task force, teacher task force, that is going to meet on Tuesday after school to talk about the data and to brainstorm some solutions on how we can help students that are in that situation. In addition, because our pattern is not unique. It is common throughout our whole entire county. We've been having conversations with other high school district superintendents, and they are also forming these teacher task forces. Is that how you say that? And we are all going to meet as a county task force. All of our teachers will be meeting together, and that will happen the week of either the 19th or the 26th, so that we can all come together as a county to talk about what we can do in common to help all of those students. So we look forward to having those conversations, and especially having that conversation next week with our teachers to see what we can do immediately to help those students. So looking forward to that. The second part of my report is I have 3 letters that I'd like to read to you. They are all from Dorothy Arnold Scholarship Fund Foundation recipients. The first one says, a sincere thank you for the extremely generous scholarship in the amount of $700. This will prove to be extremely helpful in college, and I am forever thankful that you are helping me achieve my dreams. As for college, I will be attending Columbia College Chicago with a bachelor's in fine arts in musical theater and a double minor in biology and creative writing. You and your scholarship are helping me achieve these dreams, so thank you. And that was from Ricky Luto.
Awesome.
The second one is, my name is Owen Searles, a student from El Molino High School, and I just wanted to say thank you for the scholarship the Dorothy Arnold Scholarship Fund Foundation has decided to give me. Leaving for college is already anxiety inducing enough, and the thought of all the money that I will need to put into it is even scarier. But thanks to this foundation, I'm able to put some of those worries away. Using this money, I will be able to afford all the necessary books and resources and be able to save some of my own money for payments down the line. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate the scholarship, and I want you to know that I will take full advantage of the opportunity you have helped create for me. Thank you, Owen Searles.
Nice.
Next one. I am honored and privileged to have received this tremendous scholarship. I am proud to say that I was chosen for the scholarship. It truly means so much to me. With the help and motivation from people such as yourselves, the future years of college look a little brighter for us. Thank you so much, Jackson Conger. And the last one says, I want to thank you for the 2020 Dorothy Arnold Scholarship. I was thrilled to learn of my selection and deeply appreciative of your support. I'm getting ready to attend Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona as a freshman. I'm going to major in aeronautical science, and after I graduate, I plan to become a pilot. Thank you for your generous support. I am able to attend college and pursue my goals. By awarding me with the 2020 Dorothy Arnold Scholarship, I'm one step closer to achieving my goal. Thank you again for your generosity and support. That's from Lisette Orwitzky. So those
Wonderful.
are those are always very nice. So then another letter, which isn't as wonderful of news. Every September, we do get a letter from the County Office of Education certifying our budget and our 45-day revise. So this letter is from the Sonoma County Office of Education, and it talks first about our adopted budget and the scenario it produced, and then says that our 45-day revision was actually better than our original adopted budget. It does say the district has submitted a board-approved 45-day revision to the adopted budget. The 45-day revision reflects improved ending fund balances in the 2021, 21-22, 22-23 school year, and reports that the minimum state reserve of 3% is met in all 3 years. Deficit spending has also improved from budget adoption, and the report now indicates an increase in unrestricted fund balance of $560,802 in 2021 and unrestricted deficit spending of $874,571 in 2021 and a deficit of $343,719 in 22-23. Then it says unidentified reductions have been eliminated in 2021. In our original budget, there were unidentified reductions in the budget. But then it says, and have been reduced to 1,500,000 unrestricted and 500,000 restricted for the 22-23 school year. So in other words, it's saying that we have a deficit of $2 million in the 22-23 school year. It says the county supports the district's continual exploration of cost-cutting measures that will help build or maintain the district's reserve to allow for long-term fiscal stability in order to avoid a qualified or negative certification of the 2021 first interim report, which is due in December. The district will need to implement a board-approved fiscal recovery plan to address the unidentified budget reductions. So it does talk about cash flow in here because there's concerns about cash flow, as we all know, because there are deferrals that are happening in our budget. And so we'll need to be careful of cash flow. So there's a summary about cash flow as well. So this speaks, I think, to the conversation that we're going to end up having again today when we start talking about the possible consolidation. So we can talk more about that in that item. And that's all of my report.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, we're going to move on to Ed Services. In front of us is a consideration of approval of the Comprehensive Support and Improvement Plan for Laguna High School. Can I get a motion to approve this plan?
I move that we approve the plan for Laguna High School's improvement.
Thank you, Diane. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, and with that, I'm gonna, I guess, turn this over to Tony and to Allie.
So I just want to introduce the item. So the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, requires that the state determine eligibility for schools and districts to receive CSI funds, which is Comprehensive Support and Improvement. The CSI funds, schools qualify for CSI funds if their graduation rate is below 67% and it's over 2 years. So Laguna qualified for CSI funds in the 18-19 school year. And then also, no, it's the 19-20 school year and then the 2021 school year, right? It was 18-19, 19-20, and 2021 is the 3 years that they will qualify. So as part of that, we need to develop, Laguna needs to develop a CSI plan on how they're going to spend those funds. So Allie has developed a plan with her school site and she's going to present that plan to you tonight.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Tony.
So I am going to share my screen so I can do a quick presentation. Okay, so I'm Allie. I'm the principal at Laguna. So here we're going to talk a little bit about our comprehensive support and improvement plan. So Tony kind of went over what this is and why we are where we are. Laguna's graduation rate is about 55%. And we'll talk a little bit about that. The other issue with Laguna is our college and career readiness numbers. On the California State dashboard, we're in the red, which means that the state is saying that we do not graduate enough students college and career ready, according to different things like CTE completion, as well as JC enrollment and other things. So as for our needs assessment, this was really the places where I started looking at data. So first thing I did is I looked at our Youth Truth Survey. I wanted to know what our kids felt about Laguna and where our kids felt our Laguna needed to go. I did give a parent survey about different program options, and then I gave a similar survey to the kids as well. So I could kind of get a comparison about where the kids think we need to go and where the parents think we need to go. We just passed our census day. So the day where Aries uploads all of our student information into CBED so that we can kind of get a sense of where our student population, where our demographics are. So I'm going to go over a little bit of that. And then this is kind of a daily thing. I look at grad status reports. So when I came in at the beginning of the year, or last summer, we were looking at about 20% of our senior class being mathematically able to graduate. And so like we have to do something. So we could talk a little bit about that. Looking at attendance rates. And then the other thing that I did was I looked at all of the other continuation high schools across the county. I came from another continuation high school, so I had that benefit. And then I did analysis of credit systems, the way that continuation high schools give out credits and when they give out credits. This is our demographics. So right now, as of today, we're at 60% free and reduced lunch, 12% homeless, 18% special education, 12% who have a 504, so a disability, and then 7% in foster care. So we have a pretty high degree of need at Laguna. So just from looking at that, thanks to Jeff actually made this for us. This is our graduation rates over the course of the last 3 years. And what is most striking to me is the green line, because that's our socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. So the graduation rates have declined 30% over the last 3 years for our socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. And so if I think about what our kids need and where we can help, like our kids need access to a high school diploma. They just do. Like that's our job. That's my job. That's Laguna's job. We get kids to graduate from high school. And right now, historically, the last 3 years, we can do better. So here's where we're going to try and do better. This is our identified actions. These are the things essentially CSI grants us money. Here's what we are doing. Not all of the things that we're doing take money. And in fact, most of them don't take any money, but I'm going to try and go over all of them with you. Really, we identified 4 areas of need. Like one is just the base needs. What do our kids need in order to feel safe and successful? And that's food. Like that's that's why we've partnered with the food bank. I'll talk a little bit about that. If you look at research shows about socioeconomically disadvantaged students, they need connection in order to be successful at school. And in fact, that's what our Youth Truth Survey says, is that that's kind of where our kids, that's where our staff shine. Our staff's phenomenal. Our office manager, Kimberly Nyberg, I mean, she knows every single kid who walks in that door and she gets them whatever they need. And that's what our kids need. But they also need social emotional learning. We need access to credit makeup. So again, I'll go a little bit more into that. And then we need to find ways to engage kids to help our attendance rate. Our attendance rate is 57%, our grad rate is 55%, and that there's a pretty significant correlation there. The kids who come to school, we can get through, and the kids who aren't coming, we need to find a way to get them there. So again, we have high density of low income foster homeless youth. So what I did was that I contacted the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and they have a student pantry system, but that's not currently what we're using. Right now, we're using an emergency food distribution service with them. It's totally free. It services anybody. And why this is so vitally important to Laguna is that allows us to connect with our kids in our community. So, I mean, we fed 140 people today. We probably fed about 20 or 30 of our families. And the cool thing about that is they get to walk onto our campus, socially distanced with masks. But we get to connect with them. We get to know what's going on in their lives. We get to figure out, one of our therapists is using this as an opportunity to meet with the kids individually. We get them connected to Edmentum, which is our online credit recovery system, and that we get to build this amazing relationship with our community all around food. Parents then get to see Laguna and our staff as allies and not adversaries. And I think a lot of the kids who come over to Laguna or who come into alternative ed, school has not been an ally. And I want to make that for us. The other thing that we are doing was we're trying to build some community spirit. And again, I'm going to thank Kimberly Nyberg because this was her idea. We do apple pressing every year. We live in, we're in Sebastopol. We live amongst apple farmers. So every year we make cider. And so it was her idea that we like we build that pride and we build that in that capacity in our kids of pride in West County. So we bought an apple press, and it's this massive machine, and we have an old shed that we're going to store it in. So then every year, all of our kids can experience that. And then we can do things like use the apples for another class that we're developing. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So again, this is free. We're not, the apple press costs money, but the food doesn't cost us anything, but it's vitally important to our community. As far as social emotional learning, Laguna put an advisory structure into our schedule last year, and that was really awesome. So it gives the teachers a chance to connect with kids. Advisory is like a content-free class where the teachers and the kids just get to connect for 10 minutes a day. So last year they did it, and they did mindfulness music. But the problem was they had that first period. So we are going to try to move it to later in the day, because that first period, it becomes a throwaway period where kids don't feel like they have to go to it. It's important. And I would say it's probably the most important thing that kids do all day, because they get a pretty small number of kids and really intense support from a staff member. So there's 4 things that we're doing in advisory. The first thing is counsel. So we as a staff did counsel training. And if you don't know what counsel is, it's like restorative circles. So it's the basis of restorative justice. So we did a 2-day training at the end of the summer, and we all learned how to lead these circles, and we lead them as a staff once every other week. We use this as a moment kind of for self-reflection, and also just to use the power of telling stories to hear each other and to support each other. And we're gonna push that out to the kids as well. So when the kids come back, we are gonna do this once a week where the kids do run a counsel session. We're also like to use this for Edmentum, which is the online credit recovery system that we use. Again, historically, the kids did not use Edmentum at Laguna. It's a program that we've always paid for, or that we've paid for the last few years at least. And so because I also oversee independent study, it's a perfect connection. So our kids are already using Edmentum, and we are going to have them continue to use Edmentum in advisory. We're also partnering with SCO for a program called Roots to Rise, which is a social emotional learning program. Because of our high density of low income foster and homeless youth, we actually qualify for funding through SCO as well. So they have a grant, and so they are actually supporting us to get training on a social emotional learning program where we learn how to teach the kids mindfulness strategies in little 10-minute lessons, and then we lead the kids through these strategies once a week. And then the last thing, which is what our teachers excel at, is that advisory teacher is the advocate for that kid. Like they get to be, and I hate to say this, but like the parent on campus. They're the one that gets to stick up for that kid. They're not the disciplinarian. They're the one who gets to say, hey, Allie, what can we do to help them? How can I help? What can I do? And that's really important for everybody, but especially for our kids. So as far as credit makeup, we did a master schedule change at the end of the summer, and it was, if you guys have ever been at a high school, doing a master schedule change is a massive thing. And God bless Kim Finch, who are our counselor, because we talked about it, and within like a day, we're like, all right, we're gonna do this. And it was a big deal. So we shifted from a 6-period day to a 4-period day, and we're doing what's called a 4x4. So the kids are enrolled in 4 classes simultaneously at the same time. And the kids, the classes are longer, but they get a whole semester's worth of credit over the course of 1 semester. So kids make up credits faster. So we used to give kids credit at a base rate of 60. Now we give kids credit at a base rate of 80. So essentially that means that it bumped up our numbers at the beginning of the year with this base rate of 60. We were at about 18% of our seniors could attain graduation rates without extraneous means, and that bumped us up to about 44%. So about 44% of our kids were within reach of graduation if they were getting 80 credits as opposed to 60. It also is pretty cool because it allows us to have more electives. Laguna hasn't had the opportunity to have a lot of electives because our kids are credit deficient, and it takes them a long time to get through classes. But if they can get through their classes, their core classes faster, they get to have more electives. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other things is we used every single one of our kids was entered into 2 classes on Edmentum. One was financial literacy and the other one was career options. So if the kids finish the classes, they get 10 credits, and also they get to see that they can be successful, A, in online learning, and B, in learning at all. Edmentum's a pretty cool program, and it gives them a constant like measure of success. There's like a little green person, and as long as you stay in the green person, you keep going. And so it's a cool program for them. And so again, that gives our kids a base rate of 90 credits if they pass those 2 classes and everything else. The other thing, so we last year, or the last few years, they had already been in the process of redesigning a classroom. So we had a classroom that hadn't been used. It was an old computer lab. And so they were in the middle of turning it into a math classroom. And so we've kind of redesigned some of that to make it into a flexible classroom that has so it had a little L-shaped area that used to be an office. We essentially took a door off and took a window off so that we can reclaim it as student space. And that's another thing. We're trying to reclaim these spots as student spaces. And so we're using that to, we're gonna have a 3D printing station. They bought a vinyl cutter, so that's gonna be in there as well. We're also just gonna purchase 15 PCs and 15 Mac laptops. That can run graphic design programs, AutoCAD. And then we're also going to have a couple big screen TVs so that we can also use it as a meeting room. And the really cool thing about this, and I'm really excited, is that it also allows us to partner with SRJC, and SRJC can come and teach classes on our campus. And so, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we needed up to 22. We only had space for 17. So this was Jenny's amazing, beautiful solution. It was the 15 desktops and 15 Macs. So this is gonna enable us to have SRJC come and teach classes at our site. And so that's the next thing. So we did a survey. 97% of our kids want to take SRJC classes on campus. And so we met Sue Taggart, who's our new math teacher, who's also phenomenal. We met with the department chair at SRJC of computer science. And so there's essentially 4 things we want to look at offering at Laguna. We want the kids to be able to at least do the first few classes for graphic design certification, IT certification, so they learn how to fix computers, 3D printing, because that's just really cool, and then also video game design, because again, it's an emerging industry in Sonoma County, and we want to give our kids the skills so that they can access that industry. So 97% of our kids are excited and are interested in this. And why this is so cool is because kids who take JC courses at a high school campus have significantly higher rates of attending college, of earning more credits in college, and they have higher rates of staying in college. And this is particularly true for our kids, for underrepresented groups. So I think like this is huge and monumental for our student population. The other thing is that like if we want our kids to come to school, they have to want to come to school. There has to be something that drives them. There has to be something that they love there, and they want hands-on activities. Again, we gave the survey, and that's what they're telling us. They want to do things and have fun, and So another thing we did is we took another old office and we reclaimed it, and we're making a ceramics lab. We just happened to have hired an art teacher who's also a ceramicist. And we already had 2 working kilns. So the Kiwanis Club donated another throwing wheel, and then we're gonna use CSI funds to buy a 3rd one. So we essentially made a ceramics lab out of like an old office. And that teacher also is interested in creating a sustainable living class, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then we're going to continue with the garden program. If you guys have been to Laguna, and I'm sure everybody has, we have the amazing, beautiful gardens. And one of the things that Joe Maloney does, which is super cool, he teaches the kids how to graft apple trees. So we have all that space on the perimeter of campus. So we're going to plant those grafted apple trees because we have like 30 of them just hanging out in pots around campus. And then we're going to use those apples with the apple press. And then we can process the apples into apple butter in our sustainable living course. The other thing our kids and our families both really want are practical skills. And what I want is I want practical skills that are part of a program that we can give kids credit for. So we're looking at developing a sustainable living course. So it's like home ec for the 21st century. So how do we balance a checkbook, but how do you spend money responsibly? They want to cooking, but also she's a ceramicist, the teacher who's interested in this. So like, you know, doing things like creating, you know, fermentation crocks where the kids can grow their sourdough cultures, things like that. Far and away, our kids want culinary. I think it was 52% of our kids, that was their number one thing. Our kids want culinary. We don't have a kitchen, but we can cobble things together. The Edmentum program actually has a food management and a food handling certification. So we can have kids do those online. I contacted Ceres, and Ceres is totally welcome and excited to partner with us so that the kids could do the food handling and the food management certification. And then once they do that, they can volunteer at Ceres and we can give them credit for that. We can give them a free period in the day. And then also if they do this in conjunction with a sustainable living course, that we could potentially borrow the Annalee kitchen and we could teach them basic culinary skills in there as well. Graphic design. So the Adobe suite, we already offer graphic design in the district. And so we have one of our teachers, Sue Taggart, is going to learn how to teach the graphic design course so that kids can do the Adobe certification. If they pass the Adobe certification tests, then they actually get college credit for it. It's also required for many of the prerequisites for the certifications for computer science at SRJC. So again, we're trying to get them high school credit, college credit, and a pathway to a career. A lot of our kids want construction too. And again, we don't have the ability to have construction on campus. We cobble it together. Joe Maloney builds things and amazing things, you know, like out of like spit and duct tape. And so 42.5% of our kids want some sort of construction program. So what we're trying to do is, again, if we have a sustainable living course, we could teach the kids soft skills so that they can learn how to interview. And then as part of this program and as part of the construction class he currently teaches, is we can also help them apply for the construction corps. And if they get in, they can also give them credits for that. As for monitoring the plan, we look at grad rates. I mean, grad rates are something that we pore over frequently. Grad status, to see where our kids are, to see if they're making progress, where they need to go. I'm really excited that we are doing our site council and that we're going to try and meet quarterly as opposed to just once a year. We are providing professional development. Again, we're partnering with SCO for some of it, and our teachers actually do want to do another round of council training. And actually community members and board members are welcome if they ever want to participate in the council training with us. It's pretty phenomenal. And then we do want to continue to talk to our students and our parents in official and unofficial ways. I think that the food pickup has given us a lot of cool unofficial ways. And I'm hopeful that school site council will give us more official ways. And I think that is it.
I'm with Jenny. Pardon me while I clear my throat because you've moved me emotionally, Allie. I'm stunned at the work that you've created in such a short time. And I am honored that you are one of ours. Amazing what leadership can do. So thank you so very, very much. Some of these things are just phenomenal. I would like to ask, would you send us that report or send it to Tony so she can get it, or to Karen or whoever, so that we can get that? I would love to be able to peruse through it again. What phenomenal ideas. And I'm so thrilled that you've involved the kids in what it is they want to do. No sense in offering, you know, underwater basket weaving if that's not what they want to do. So good job. Again, I'm just like, my heart is bursting. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments for Allie?
I mean,
yeah, Kelly, go ahead.
I just want to echo the wow. I was
I have to wipe my nose.
I know I wanted to hit, I wish we had the reactions on, because we can't do that with the panelists, but every slide I was like, oh my goodness, that's such a great idea. Oh, and then when you're using the apples, you're growing to do the apple pressing. I mean, just really thoughtful and amazing leadership. And I just, you know, when I first started way back in the day in my professional career, I worked with a lot of Laguna students, and you know, it's always been a school that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm just so inspired by what you've put together here, and truly grateful for all of this. I do, and I know this is a question that came up. I had a question around the JC classes too as well. That is such a stellar idea, because I do know the research around that. The more we can encourage, you know, students to have that next step earlier, that they will, you know, be more successful. Is that, and we've talked so many years, it's just, I'm like chills, literally chills during your presentation, because we've talked for so many years about creating a better connection to the JC students. And I'm wondering, you know, obviously I know that that's probably directly after school and the Laguna students get out a little bit earlier, but is that something that could be available beyond, I'm sure once we pilot test it out there, could that be available to multiple other students at other schools that might be interested in the same opportunity? And then,
oh, sorry, it's available to anybody. So we'll offer it at Laguna, but any student across the district, and we have to get 22 to, and I saw that question too. So we have to get 22 in order to offer the class. So yes, absolutely. And we'd love to have them.
and I would love to participate in the council trainings.
Me
So
too.
I would love to do that. I've done some restorative justice trainings, and I would love to be engaged with that. So thank you for offering.
Of course.
Great. Ted, you had a comment?
Excellent ideas, leadership. You're definitely the right person for Laguna. My relationship with Laguna goes way back to Ross and Joe Maloney. Those people have brought a lot of research to your school, and I think you're going to be able to use their talents even more. My comment is in the AutoCAD classes. Actually, they used to have those over at Hamley like 10, 11 years ago. But I kind of fizzled out, and I don't know if that was because of the teacher moved on to another district. But I've taken AutoCAD class at the JC, and all the people in there were in your age range of students, and they just excelled and left all us old people way, way behind. So in my profession, I've hired 2, 3, 4 CAD drafters, and they make a very good living without the need for a JC or a college degree. So there's a lot of resources you have with the Rotary, Joe Maloney and stuff. And if you need contacts with me, my profession, contact me, be glad to help out and assist. So well done. Life at Laguna looks a lot better, everybody.
Good job, Allie. Thanks, Ted. Diane.
I'm going to join the lineup of thank you, Allie, and thank you, teachers at Laguna. It sounds like you're a fine working team, and that makes all the difference for the students. And Jeannie, after we hear comments from the public, I don't like how I worded the motion, so I'd like to redo it after we hear from the public.
Okay, no problem. Any other comments? Okay, is there any comments from the public? I see that Laura Schmitz had her hand raised for quite some time.
She has it raised for me.
But I do want to share this with everyone. This came from Ross Bickford, and he's a past principal of Laguna. And he said he wanted to say how very pleased and impressed he is with the current initiatives at Laguna High School. So that speaks volumes, because Ross probably was some hard shoes to fill, actually. So good job, Allie.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay, looks like we do have a couple of hands. Lynn Gleason's got her hand raised.
Lynn, did you want to ask your question? Well, I've got a question in the queue from her. Would there be a grade of age requirement for these classes at SRJC, or would it be all of the student body? And
Good
then
question.
All of the student body. I think it's anybody over 8th grade, what they will allow.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Good job. Good question, Lynn.
I am also going to bring her in, and Lynn, you're okay to unmute your mic.
My only comment is, wow, that's a great thing to do. Something that's been very much needed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay. Any other comments from the public? Oh, there's Greg. And Laura still has her hand raised.
Laura's raising her hand so I can find her. She has the next presentation.
Okay, okay, good. All right, Laura, that's okay.
Yeah, hi, this is Greg Dumas. How are you?
Good, Greg, thanks.
Yeah, so obviously there's potentially some really tough decisions that have to be made with the budget moving forward. By the way, I'm a former athletic director at Molino, and I was a assistant wrestling coach and baseball coach there for about 10 years. Has there been given any thought about expanding a vocational program at one of the locations should you have the need to consolidate? Reason I'm saying that is we've heard it tonight, and it's been a common theme. A lot of kids that are going to school really have a need and an acumen for wanting to learn how to be auto techs or carpenters, plumbers, electricians, cosmetologists, drafters. I grew up in northern New Jersey, where we actually had a magnet vocational school, and it was phenomenal. They had a full sports program. It was called Sussex Votech. It's actually still in existence. I'm just thinking, out loud ahead, if the need comes where you've got to drop the hammer because of funding issues, possibly looking at repurposing one of those facilities as a full scale a vocational school. And I would guess that if that were to happen, you would also possibly get a lot of interest from the rest of the county as well. So I would implore that to maybe be, on part of the thinking process here, because, frankly, I've got 2 sons. One went to Annalee, one went to El Molino. And fortunately, the one son even beat us in a baseball game with a base clearing triple, the little clown. But he chose to be an auto mechanic, and he's done great with it. And he ended up going to UTI, and he ultimately chose going to Annalee because they did have an auto tech program, and El Molino didn't have it. So I can't stress enough. I think that's important for probably 30% or more of the student population, maybe 40%. But just thinking out loud, that might be a way to be able to keep all facilities intact by repurposing one as a magnet vocational school.
Okay, great, Greg. Really, I think your comment probably is for not the next item, but the item after that. But I think we did hear what you had to say, so thank you.
And we have another comment from Julie McClelland. Will there be a relationship established with the Lime Foundation for the Construction Corps?
I will look into that. I don't know what the Lime Foundation is, but I will find out.
There we go. Okay. All right. So we do have a motion on the floor, and Diane would like to amend her motion. So go ahead, Diane.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion to this one. I move that we approve the comprehensive support and improvement plan for Laguna High School.
Thank you. Who was the second on that?
Ted.
I will agree and go along with Diane's motion.
Okay, thank you. Karen, you got that okay? Great, thank you. Thank you, Diane. Okay, so now that we have the motion clear, we're going to do our roll call vote on Ally's plan. Diane Landry.
Aye.
Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. Jeff Wise,
Aye.
Jeannie Broom,
Aye.
Corey McCullough.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you again, Allie. Great, great job. And I look forward to watching how this grows and morphs. Good job. Okay, so next is our discussion on special education significant disproportionality draft report. This is just a draft. We're not looking for a recommend or an action item right now tonight. So I will turn it over to Tony and she can introduce Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi. So you've been hearing about significant disproportionality from me for a bit. I think I'm going to let Laura describe that and the process that we're going through. This report that she's giving tonight will need to be updated and brought back to the board at our meeting in November for your approval. So I'm going to let her explain it.
Thank you so much, Tony. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you. And nice to see everybody tonight. Okay. Oop. Okay, so tonight I'm just going to give an introduction because I'll be asking next month for you guys to approve this plan called the Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervention Services Plan. So a little bit of background on special ed program auditing. There's a lot. There's student level file review. There's categorical monitoring that happens every year. If too many elements don't meet standards and are statistically worse than other districts, it triggers this thing called intensive review. And there's also a multi-year, which is actually the most intensive review, which is if you have equity ratios that are statistically worse than most districts and not met for 3 or more years in a row, then it triggers something called significant disproportionality. And we have some, they're called set plans due for some of our categorical monitoring items. But what I'm really here to talk about tonight is that we are in this statistical disproportionality where we need a CSACE plan. So the CSACE is a 27-month process. There is some funding involved. And one of the little bits of funding is we're required to have a consultant to help us get through this process. On a really positive note, I feel like the training is amazing. We're not just doing busy work. This consultant is helping us, the process is helping us walk through really some significantly important things about how to apply a cultural lens when we look at our special ed services and how we're serving students. At this level, at the significant disproportionality level, it really is about a process that emphasizes a broad look at interventions and services and supports at general ed in order to avoid disproportionality within special ed. So it's broad and overarching, even though it comes from an equity and special ed lens. So if we look, 24.4% of our district students are Hispanic, 25.5% of SPED students are Hispanic. So we're not too far off there. But our 14.7% of students in special education is well above the state average. So that in and of itself might be a data point to make us look and say, what about our processes is not serving students before they find themselves in special education. So the data that got us to where we are, one is separate schools. Up here at the top, it says separate schools. And you can see that our numbers are pretty small. We have 14 white students in separate schools. So, and 2 students who are Hispanic. So these are all the non-public schools throughout the county. And we've been that way for 3 years. Okay, there we go. The other place that we're disproportionate is students with an intellectual disability. We have 13 Hispanic students with an intellectual disability and 7 white students with intellectual disability. And that is an indicator that it might be a little bit out of whack. So those are our 2 categories. And kind of new this year, white students with emotional disturbance. And by chance, white students with the emotional disturbance designation are a big portion of our white students in separate schools. So this one all goes together. And by chance, we're no longer on the watch list for Hispanic students with an intellectual disability designation. But because we were so far out of whack for 3 years in a row, we're still required to continue so that we don't go back into that category. So we did this huge process, 5 different focus groups, lots of leadership meetings, stakeholder meetings, and we've come to some draft root causes. One is that we have an emerging system of academic supports for struggling students, and that's within general education, both Hispanic and white. There doesn't seem to be a discrepancy there. The academic support class was one of the big interventions we put into place this year, and I'm hoping that that's helpful. A second draft root cause is social emotional supports for struggling students. This is the area that I think last year and this year we have made the amazing gains. We have these impact teams where all the student support services people come together and talk about the kids and problem solve. And we have, like Ali mentioned, we have Keeping Kids in School. We have some organizations that are helping kids, actually helping families one-on-one. We have resources to connect families to therapy and counseling, great MFT teams. So I feel like this is one that has been a root cause, and we're really killing it. The next thing, lack of systematic assessment and intervention in math and English. Within the SPED students, our SPED students in particular are not performing very well on math and English tests. So one of the things would be to look at perhaps how we're assessing 9th graders. Do we have formative assessment, systematic assessment that goes through, and then targeted interventions, especially at the freshman level? So that's looking like one of the draft root causes. Another thing that we found is that cultural factors influence mental health services and supports. So remember that one of the things we're out of whack with is that we have so many white emotionally disturbed students. And by emotionally disturbed, think of how many students are struggling with anxiety and depression. And that the Hispanic students are being served differently than the white students when the end result is different numbers. So we need to take a look at that and make a plan. And then cultural factors appear to influence the evaluation and identification process. So this one is actually within the special education system. And we want to make sure that as we do the big every 3-year periodic evaluations, we're working with students and feeder schools and district psychologists at the 6th, 7th, 8th grade level. And we're making sure that our designations are correct, that the Hispanic families are being assessed, or students are being assessed in ways. For example, the easiest thing is using Hispanic assessment tools and evaluators so that we're treating both families the same. So that's just the background of where we are with significant disproportionality. The next steps next week, we have a stakeholder meeting. I'm sure there's people in the audience who have participated in our stakeholder meetings and our focus groups, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you, parents, for those of you who have participated and given your opinions and your experiences. Next week, we're going to present these root causes. We're going to present draft activities and measurable outcomes that are aligned with the root causes. And we're going to elicit their feedback. And what do you think of this draft plan? And then after stakeholders have had the chance to talk about it and pull it apart, then I'll present a plan in November's board meeting to be approved and forwarded to CDE. Okay, I think that's it. Do you have any questions?
Very nice, Laura. Thank you so much for the information. I know we keep hearing about disproportionality, but it was really good to get a little more of the mashed potatoes of it. So thanks. Diane, you have a question?
I'd like to get the slides to the presentation. I'm sure the other board members would like to also. It's a lot to take in, so I'd like to see the slides to kind of, oh, okay. That's what she said.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
That's a lot. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
Welcome.
That was one of the reasons why we wanted to present it at this meeting, so you had a chance to digest it before it came back as a full plan next meeting.
Right, right. Yeah. Any other comments, Ted?
Just if you have the opportunity to invite a board member or two to stakeholder meeting, I'd be interested in going if I'm available.
Ted, Monday night from 5:30 to 7. I would love to have you attend. I will send you.
I'm assuming online or what? Okay, just send me a.
Yep, I'll send you an invite. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good idea. Good idea.
All of us an invite.
Yeah, can you?
Well, I'll look at our calendars.
Yeah, we'll try to not. We can't all be there, but yeah, it's illegal. But we'll make it work. Well, I just want to.
Two of us can go, so decide who's going to go.
Arm wrestle.
Okay, let's just make sure we coordinate ahead of time.
And
all right, great. That's a really good idea, Ted. I like that. Any other comments?
Well, just oh, go ahead.
I was just saying I'm attaching the document to the board item in case any of the audience wants to see it.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to echo similar things. Excellent presentation. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing. You know, overrepresentation in special education has been a long-going challenge in our district, and it's not just our district. You look at the data countywide, Sonoma County has a challenge in this area, and I'm so grateful that you're here and really giving this the attention that it needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so no action on this, but we'll all review the document, and then we will be Laura will be bringing that back. So great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being here. More than anything, I also want to say thank you for being here to help Tony, because by doing this, you took a large piece of the puzzle off of her plate and allows her to do other things. So I'm so glad that we have you aboard.
She's still a good advisor, but you're quite
excellent. That's her job. Perfect. Okay, great. All right. So next we're going to move on to our discussion with regards to the facilities and operations feasibility study. We're going to do a 45-minute maximum discussion. If, after 30 or 40 minutes, whatever time runs out, questions run out, that's okay. And we will just move on. After the 45 minutes, we'll open up to board members for any further questions that they may have. Please note that we would, if you've already heard the question that you had been asked and possibly answered, please do us the pleasure of just liking that item on the Q&A And that way we don't have to have the repeat of the questioning. We can get more questions in. Mia's going to time it for us. Mia, when we get about a minute or two out, would you just text me and let me know so that I can begin to kind of wrap it up? Please note too, Jenny, do we have our presenters from last week present?
No, they'll all be at the town hall.
Okay, they're going to be at the town hall. So tonight you may ask questions that we don't have answers to. So please just realize that. We'll let you, we'll ask your question, and if between Jenny and Tony, they cannot answer the question, or Jeff, because I know we're going to do a little financial piece here, then we'll just hold your question and we'll make sure that it gets answered at the town hall.
Jeannie?
And I think you had a question from Ross about the previous item, that he wanted to please look at overrepresentation at Laguna.
That's
around 18%. So I just want to make sure we read
Great,
that.
thank
We're
you.
putting
Okay.
it in the notes.
I didn't see that, so
yeah,
thank
no,
you.
I got your back. I'm helping you out.
I love it. Thank you, girl.
In response to that, I just want to say that that's part of the whole process. That is part of what we're looking at Laguna in terms of referrals, and it's part of what we're looking at in terms of special education. So that's kind of, that question kind of encapsulates both of the things we talked about tonight, Laguna and special education together.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, good. Great. Thank you, Ross, for the question. Yes, someone else?
I just stepped away to use the restroom. How much time are we giving this item for
We're going to
questions?
give 45 minutes for Q&A. So if you give me a thumbs, or just give me a text at about a minute and a half, that'd be great. And then I can know it's time to poke my head in.
We have one more comment from Ross regarding the prior item.
I answered it.
Okay, perfect. Even the most latest one that he did?
Yeah, he says that's an issue I regret not having adequately addressed as principal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'm going to ask the trustees to, you seem to all be muted. Mute yourself, and also our students, mute yourself. And
Jeannie, do you want me to give a background for those?
Yes, I do want you to give a background. And I guess if we all want to stay with our videos, if you would rather close your video, that's up to you as well, trustees and students. Whatever works for each of you. It's not like we have presenters other than Tony. Not that you're not important, Tony.
I can change it to speaker view. So like when we first started the meeting, you see whoever's talking, if that would make it easier so that we can all see Tony.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. That way I don't want us to be the focus. I want the topic to be the focus.
I don't want to be the focus.
Sorry. Okay, Tony, you have the floor.
Okay, so what I just wanted to do was just reintroduce the item so that people who weren't at the last meeting actually knew why we were even having this conversation. So there's really 3 issues that are challenges that the district is facing and has been facing actually for some time. The first is declining enrollment. So there's been a decline in enrollment in all of our schools since 2013. The district has lost 270 students. That's based on district enrollment at second interim. And projections from our elementary partner districts are that by 2022, we'll continue to decline and we'll lose close to 74 students by that time. Our inter-district transfer enrollment, which accounts for about 1/3 of our district's total enrollment, is also declining. This year we had 36 fewer students than we had last year. This trend is not unique to our school district. It's throughout all of Sonoma County, especially with the COVID and with the realization that people can work remotely, and the fact that we have fires here, and I've had quite a few fires. There are people leaving Sonoma County. So all of that is contributing to the declining enrollment. Another issue that we have is program limitations. What happens in high schools especially is once enrollment drops below a certain level, it's difficult to maintain the quality and the expanse, the depth of programs. And we are already experiencing that at actually both of our high schools. We've had to, Annalee no longer has a culinary program, and El Molino has programs that we can no longer offer due to the fact that we don't have enough students enrolled in those programs. The third one is budget challenges, which you've heard a little bit about tonight in the letter that I read from Sonoma County, but that letter is not new to this district. Over the past 10 years, the district budget has been qualified 7 of the 10 years. And the 1 year that or the 3 years that the budget was not qualified and was positive, it was due to the fact that the district was using one-time money to support ongoing budget challenges. Each year, the Sonoma County Office of Education has advised the district that it needs to address deficit spending and declining enrollment. So this is not a new letter that's coming. This year, SCO has advised that you heard this letter. They've again advised that they're requiring the district to develop a fiscal recovery plan to address a projected $2 million shortfall in the 22-23 school year. So in 17-18, the district had formed a budget advisory committee, and that committee was looking at big picture possibilities to address the budget deficit. At that time, there were 2 big suggestions that were made. One was to investigate unification of our school district with our partner school districts. The board has passed a resolution, and that process is currently starting. The Sonoma County Office of Education is currently starting that process. In addition to that suggestion from the Budget Advisory Committee, there was also the option of looking at consolidating our high schools into one campus. So the financial and operations feasibility study, it's not financial, the facilities and operations feasibility study was initiated to start investigating that particular question. So the presentation that was given, was that a week ago? A week ago. The presentation that was given a week ago was the start of that formal conversation. Now in that presentation, QKA, one of our architects that we work with, presented 6 options, 3 options for each of our school sites. And basically the conclusion that we could make from what they presented was that we can fit all of our students onto one school site, that can happen. What it showed was that there are 3 different options. There's one option where there would be minimum requirements. Basically, we just put everybody onto the school sites, and how that can happen. There was a second where there were CDE recommendations, meaning that our small classrooms, for example, at Annalee in the main building, would be made into larger classrooms, which is the CDE minimum requirement of 960 square feet. So that was the second option that was presented. And then the third option was presented for both campuses, which would allow for and build out the campuses to allow for program requirements, like a large dance studio or a larger ag center or a larger place for chorus. So that third option in both scenarios allowed for that. And there were estimates that were also given as to how much that could cost the district. There was also an option for a new campus, which showed not using either of the 2 campuses, but acquiring a new piece of property and building a brand new high school on a third property. So all of those options were presented at that meeting. The second section of the report that was given by Axia Architects, and that portion of the presentation focused on how we could develop workforce housing as an option. It specifically looked at Laguna and the district office property, because at the time when that study was done, that's what we were looking at. We were specifically looking at the option of Laguna and the district office. But the process that was described in terms of Laguna and the district office property could be used at either site if that site would become vacant, meaning that there would be a long process that we would need to go through to look at zoning and then find out whether those properties could be built out into the possibility of using workforce housing. So that was the second portion of the presentation. The third portion of the presentation was given by legal. And I believe his name is Phil Henderson, is our legal person. Is that right, Jenny? Okay. And in that third portion, what Mr. Henderson shared with us were the legal aspects of moving in this direction. I think probably two of the highlights that I got from his presentation were, first, that the board is the entity that makes the decision to close a campus. The board takes input, but it is the board's responsibility to make that decision. Once the board makes that decision, then there's a formation of a 7-Eleven committee. And that committee then has the responsibility of looking at the evidence and then deciding whether to declare that property surplus. He spent a lot of time talking about all the other legal options and aspects of doing that. But that was the conclusion of the presentation. There were a lot of questions that came up in that presentation. And the purpose of today is to allow those people to ask, for anyone actually, to ask additional questions. There is a copy of the presentation. Jenny, is that posted on our website?
Yes, it's linked to last week's special board meeting under the item. We also have the recording of the board meeting under that item as well.
Okay. So you can actually listen to the whole meeting. I think it was about 4 hours, but you can listen to the meeting and you can also see the presentation at both of those links.
Correct.
Okay, so I think it's time to take questions.
And I have a couple questions that are in the Q&A, but are we also taking live comments?
Jeannie, are we taking live comments too?
I would prefer them in the Q&A because then we have a better record of them.
Copy that. All right, the first question is from Robin Leon. With regards to using the current El Molino site, what would the cost be if Laguna and the district office stay in their current location rather than relocating? That is a really hard number to come up with right now because it's factored into, I believe we were at 95 million with phase or option 3, which would be relocating everyone to that district, to El Molino and putting everybody out there and building out the program. So it depends, I think, on what phase we're talking about with respect to the cost savings. I think as we go further down the line with additional conversations, we can vet out what the cost savings would be, because some of them would be related to, you wouldn't be necessarily building out those spaces at those campuses. You might be improving them at the Laguna campus or at the district office campus. So it's not as if there wouldn't be a cost, because there would still be some modernization needs, but you also have the operational costs, what it takes to run those sites, which is pretty small in my opinion, compared to our larger campuses. So I think as we go into the next couple of town halls, and Tony and Jeff, feel free to chime in here, we're starting to get down to the more finite numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, I accidentally filtered out one of Carmen's questions, so I apologize. I got to go back down and find it. Here it is. This is from Carmen, and I always butcher her last name. I'm so sorry. I'm not even going to try. Can we hear more about logistically what it would look like with both schools running on the same campus?
I guess I'm trying to understand the question. So for both schools would, so let's just take an example of Annalee moving, all the Annalee students moving to the El Molino campus. So we would run a high school with 1,700 kids, 1,600 kids, 1,700 kids. So I guess I'm not understanding the question. So logistically, there would be a principal and assistant principals and one office staff and all the teachers on one campus with all of the students.
And I think if I were to interpret her question, and I'm taking a little bit of liberties here, she was thinking maybe if we were trying to run simultaneously Annalee El Molino on the El Molino campus. Was that what you were trying to say, Carmen? If you can give us any kind, sorry, can I clarify? Yes, that's what she, I keep scrolling down. Yes, she was thinking if they were running Annalee, El Molino, Laguna all on the same campus, what would that look like logistically? And I think you answered that they would be combined.
Right. The idea would be that the Annalee and El Molino student body would and staff would be combined. Laguna would continue to run an alternative education program.
Next question is from Robin Leone. Our district has one of the largest, if not the largest, geographical footprint in the state. Is consideration being given to the total transportation time for students on the outer edges of the district when it comes to choosing a site for all district students?
I'm certain that will be one part of the conversation. Yes. So, I mean, I just want to clarify before I ask the next question. So the board is being asked to make two decisions. The first decision is whether or not to consolidate a campus. That's the first decision. The second decision, once that decision is made, is which campus would they consolidate. So the decisions are really separate, because the first one is based on our financial and programming situation. And the second is then based on programming and transportation and all of those other things that come into making that second decision. So there's really two.
Next question is from Julie McClelland. Will the decision to combine schools be contingent upon a bond being passed to fund the remodel or building costs? If not, where would the funds to remodel or build come from? The dollars presented last week were very high. Good question. Do you want to tag team that with me, Tony? I think it's a two-part question or two-part response. There are three phases or three options presented for each campus. One being bare minimum, second being meeting CDE requirements, and the third being meeting district program requirements. Those all have different price tags to them. Obviously, option one and both are relatively small and can be afforded by our current bond dollars. We passed a bond back in, gosh, it feels like forever ago, 2018, and that's a $91 million bond, of which we've sold two series, one for $25 million, the second one for $20 million, for a combined total of cash on hand of roughly $45 million. We looked at the numbers earlier this week, and I believe we have, Jeff, you might have to help me, 30
or, oh, go ahead.
Well, we have, what was it, 29 million not committed?
Yeah. Right. So 29 non-committed, about 7 that's allocated to, current projects that could change based on how this year goes.
Correct, with the remaining 45, sorry, my math is 45 million left to be available to us. So option two being presented was, again, meeting those CDE requirements. I believe, if I recall, I just don't have the presentation in front of me. We would be able to afford those both with the current bond dollars that we have in place. It's when we start to build out the programmatic piece. we would be roughly, I think it was at 92 million for one campus, 95 for the other campus, which would be well past what we currently have available to be used. But that's not uncommon. Anytime you're working, even with the bond that we have, you all might remember when I said we're going to have projects that I know that we can't afford later on, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't program towards them. Also, you look at, this is where I get to the second part of the response. Depending on what campus is selected and what the 7-Eleven committee derives out of what that property should be done, whether we build it out or sell it or long-term lease it, those funds could be used to go towards paying for any future modernization. It's also highly unlikely that we would go out for a bond immediately, only because of the climate right now. We have dollars. You don't want to typically go out for a bond when you have bond money. And it's going to take us a significant amount of time to even spend the 91 million that we have. So it's kind of a very long, complicated answer to we don't know yet. Tony, Jeff, any additional thoughts there?
No, I mean, I think you hit it on the head, and I think it's a good question. You know, I think our first priority would be to use the bond dollars that we have to make any projects, you know, go as long as possible, or make that stretch as long as possible to, you know, ease the needs of the community.
All right, our next comment is from Ross Bickford. I don't know if it's doable financially, but the thought of a 21st century high school in West County is very exciting, and what we owe our youth. What we've been doing through well-intentioned is bandaging outdated facilities. So that was just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Next comment or question is from Lynn Gleason. In what all was discussed last week's study, nothing was addressed about traffic, or would that be another study? We brought that up a couple different times, and that was through what we call the CEQA process. So that's the California Environmental Quality Act. And it would be a requirement for whatever campus were to be the selected campus for us to go through an environmental review, and traffic is, I have a bug flying in front of my face. Traffic study is part of that environmental review. So yes, it is part of the process, and it was discussed a little bit in Axia's, no, I'm sorry. Well, it was discussed in all three presentations, because if you're going to be building workforce housing, you would have to go through a traffic study. So more will come out with that information as we go further on down the line. Next question is from Rochelle Stouffer. Would it be necessary to ask the public for yet another bond for either phase 3 option? And I believe we've addressed that. I hope that we have addressed that we're uncertain if that would be a requirement because of property being declared surplus. We could use proceeds from that property sale, lease, or whatever we deem to do with it to help bridge that gap to complete future modernizations. Camille Escovedo, is the workforce housing outline for just the Laguna district office property, or is that Annalee and Laguna High School and the district office? For the purpose of the feasibility study, when we started this process, what feels like eons and eons ago, we were only looking at the district office and the Laguna property, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be applied to either one of the comprehensive high schools.
Yeah, the same process that was outlined for Laguna and the district office, that would be the same process that we would need to use for either of the two other sites.
And then the last question is from Greg Dumas. Given the projected financial shortfall, how can it be justified to even consider building a new high school campus? Certainly that could not be feasible without the approval of significant bond issue to do this. I don't believe there would be much of an appetite of West County taxpayers to approve this. Can you please comment on this train of thought? And Tony, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, as one of the ideas that had been brought up in the budget advisory committees was why not build a new school? So when we were designing this feasibility study, we said we might as well address that question with all the other questions that have come up. So that's why we included that in as one of the options, because we wanted to show the board what that option could cost the district if that was something that was even being considered. And I think the money that was identified was not even the purchasing of a piece of property. So unless, I don't know that the board would consider such a thing, but it does cost a substantial amount of money. And that was the purpose of bringing it up, was to show people how much it would cost.
And I'll just piggyback off of that. Totally agree. Tony and I, as well as the consultants, we were just trying to make sure that we kind of overturned every rock to just make sure that we went through every scenario that could potentially be brought up so that we were prepared. And we wanted to showcase the cost of building a brand new high school, and it's $380 million on average just to construct it. That doesn't include land procurement and the fact that it would take probably a decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe longer. Last question from Ross Bickford. This is for the board. Closing both campuses and building a new one will be a major political hot potato. Many alumni and citizens will put in one of my favorite words that I can never pronounce, vehemently resist change. Are you willing to take the heat if you decide that's what's best for our students? And that was a question directed at the board.
Mm-hmm.
I will just say that remains to be seen.
And we have another one from Rochelle Stouffer. Is there a time frame proposed for either phase 3 option? And at this point, it's hard to put a time frame together for construction options because we have yet to do master planning. And master planning is when you look at the campus, you look at the programs, and you really start to map out what that looks like. So you may have recall from QKA's presentation saying, hey, you know, you'll see on this document that we have called out a new building here or a modernization here or a new structure here. Please don't think that this is planning and this is where these will be. That's when we sit down and really talk with everyone, our stakeholder groups, and start to have a conversation about what the campuses actually look like. And so just so everyone is aware, this bond measure, the $91 million 2018 bond, it's typically a 10 to 12 year timeline to build out all of the projects and spend your bond dollars down. So this is not something that happens overnight or very quickly, and it happens in a multitude of phases, some of them being new construction and some of them being modernization. Another question from Cassandra Albright. If consolidation to one campus, if vacant property sold, that's one-time money. Are you looking at workforce housing as a continuing revenue stream instead? Community voice, oh, that's just her. I think we're looking at everything. Tony, feel free to chime in here. What I want to make sure people understand about workforce housing is it is a lengthy and long endeavor. It is I'll give my story that I gave our cabinet earlier this week. I used to work for Santa Rosa City Schools, and I worked there in 2003 to 2000 till when I started with this district. And I was the facilities director there. And we had a property called Fir Ridge up in Fountain Grove, and we were going to build workforce housing. It's 17 years later, and that property is now up for sale because they abandoned it because it was so difficult to build. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen here. I'm just saying it's typically an uphill battle, and you have to get the right partners in place and a developer that's willing to basically front the cost of workforce housing. And they're going to want to, and Phil alluded to this in his presentation, they're going to want to make their money back. And so it's a long-term venture for a district. It's not necessarily something that would be an instantaneous revenue stream. It would probably take upwards of 7 to 10 years to build workforce housing and have it livable, and then probably another 15 years before the district started to see revenue. And that's just from the developer wants to get paid first.
Mm-hmm. Jenny, I'll take the next question. The question came from Ross Bickford again. He made a comment that my comment was considered a non-answer. Ross, I'm sorry that you considered it that. It actually was the answer. The board has agreed that we are not making comments on any of the comments or questions. We are listening, and we are choosing to not comment on questions such as yours. We are going to listen at this meeting and at our next 2 town halls. And then when we bring this to the board as a possible action item, when we do that, that's when you will see some comments and some discussion amongst the board members. Thank you.
And I'll say this again, this is the last question. Every time I say it's the last question, I get a bunch more. So this is from Jared Brown. How will the various stakeholders, teachers, staff, admin, parents, students, community be involved in the process, if at all, aside from town halls over the next year? Are there any plans? Tony.
I think that the plans that the board has is to have these kind of conversations, these kind of question and answer input meetings. I mean, that's the purpose of these meetings. The purpose of these meetings is to get the input from staff, from the community. And that's what the sole purpose is of the 2 town hall meetings, is to get input from the community. I've put out an email to all parents asking them to attend these meetings and to send me and the board questions, comments, give us your opinion and what you're thinking about these things. It's also been, it's on our website. It's been in the both the PD and the Sonoma West. So we are trying to get input from any and all places. So you're welcome to ask those questions in any of these forums.
Yeah, I guess I get to answer this again. Ross, you were correct. Jenny and Tony have been answering questions, but you have noticed that the board is not. The board proper has agreed that we are not answering questions. This is a time for input from the public. This is time for us to listen and not a time for us to make a comment on this at this point in time. We really want to get all of the feedback so that the community knows that we're listening and we're hearing you. And so I appreciate your comments, but other than me speaking here, you're not going to get maybe the answer that you'd like tonight. It will be to come.
And there's officially no more questions.
I did want to also say that we did send out I did send out information to staff. So there was an email that went out to all parents. There was an email that went out to all staff, telling them about the issues and what we're discussing. It had links to all of the presentations and to all of the board meetings. It had a link up to every single board meeting that we're having, asking people for input. So we're hoping that people come out and tell us what they think.
And that's
You're going to take additional questions from the board.
Absolutely. That if there's no other questions, it looks like not. Let's have the board ask questions. Anybody got a question?
I have a question.
Okay, Kelly, go ahead.
Well, it's come up. I know, you know, a lot of folks are already asking about the transportation piece. And I know that this is a two-phase decision that we need to make. One would be, you know, does it make sense to have just one campus and combine student bodies? And then the other one is, what would that actually look like? And where would those students be housed? But I am wondering, in a future meeting, it would help me just understand the impacts of transportation for the more rural students who have longer transportation rides. How many students is that? And, you know, could there be an option, because this goes back into the budget cost savings question. So this is a question for you, Jeff. Could there be an option of like almost creating like an express bus? And then would there be extra costs for that? And then would that offset some of our total savings that we'd actually be looking at? If we did go the route, again, there's multiple decisions that have to be made before that, but I would wonder about that piece.
Have to investigate it.
Yeah.
We'd have to investigate it with the JPA.
Yeah, well, that's, I know it's like a multi-layered question, because it's not like we're part of the giant transportation agency. So I know that there's a lot of layers to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to the stakeholder, Jared, to your question, I just want to, you know, we can't, as a board, we don't always, and as administration, always think of every little angle of where we should be getting information out to, or how we're getting input. So, you know, if you have additional suggestions of avenues or areas or ways that we can get feedback, you know, please let us know if you feel like we're missing something, because we want this to be a really good, thorough process of getting community input.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm getting like weird feedback in my AirPods, but to address the transportation, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Annalee is not running busing correctly and El Molino is.
Yes, correct.
They'll add that to the comparison as far as if we're.
Oh, we lost you.
Right. I think what you're trying to ask is like, will transportation be included? Because that would be an additional cost, because kids will, if like we did go that, if we're comparing the two campuses of where we choose to have students be, ultimately, there could be additional costs if kids are being transported further.
And just so you guys know too, I mean, in terms of like the number, you know, given that we're working with right now, obviously with everything, it's an estimate. And so there is, you know, the number that we've been talking about, the 1.2, is kind of in the middle of our projected. You know, we have some data that says that it might be a little bit higher, and then factoring in stuff like that, you know, any additional costs. I think it was brought up last week about, you know, possible security at one of the sites or whatever. I tried to leave room in our projected savings for some of those unforeseen costs that come up as well. So yes, it will definitely be factored in.
I think we've also got to take note of like our district as a whole, right? Because we've got such, I think somebody commented on the large footprint that we have in our district as far as like the most centrally located facility in the district.
There's more questions coming in.
I'll just say I've got Jared just has his hand up, but then he lowered it and asked a question. Okay, so I'm going back to questions. Katie Finnegan, where does the student population live, both current and future? I don't know that one.
Do you want to take it, Tony, or you want me to?
Well, I mean, they live from Fort Ross to Hessel Road and west to Lano Road.
Right.
East to Lano Road.
And some of our inter-district students come from Elsie Allen or from Pioneer. So some come from Cotati Runner Park. So they come from the full range.
Yeah, I can tell you just from, obviously we have our kids that are in district, the ones that are, in our boundaries. As far as our inner districts go, 75% of them are that west edge of Santa Rosa for the most part, give or take another 20% of those, just the inner districts are from the Cotati Runner Park area. So that's the bulk of the other side. It's kind of Cotati Runner Park, west side of Santa Rosa, and then our boundaries.
And just for clarification, I think Katie was looking to find out how many students from each area. And I wasn't sure if that's demographics that we can share tonight or in the future.
It's not something we can share tonight, but it is something. I saw something, I think it was last year, we had a map that actually had the layered dots. It showed where the concentration of our students lived. So we can bring that. I mean, that's really about the second question. So we can bring that information when we get to the second part of that question, certainly.
And Tony, were you remembering that map? I don't think we shared it. We actually have it from QKA. They did that map for us.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
When you brought up the dots, I went, where did the dots come from? So we can potentially bring that back. Will be with prior year data, but still good information.
Yep.
Next question is from actually Jim Walton. Nice to hear from you. Yeah. When do you expect to start saving money with this combined with the combined schools if we started tomorrow?
Jeff, you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, if we started tomorrow, then then it would be next year. I mean, really, the savings is going to come as soon as the transition happens, because so much of the savings is in the operationals and the staffing. As soon as all kids are on one campus, that savings starts to be or would start to be realized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next question from Jared Brown. Just to clarify, I'm thinking primarily about the physical, what goes where on campus process. I think this is in respect to his earlier question about outreach. I think town halls are an important first step. I also think that the small committee of heads thinking about how we might best design an updated campus should we consolidate is important for the people that will be interacting within that space each day.
Yes. And I think the plan would be, and Jenny can tag team this, is that if the decision were made to consolidate campuses, and then if the decision were made to which one to consolidate, the next thing that happens is the master planning process. And that would be happen. The facility master planning process would be happening so that the teachers, students, staff would be designing what would be on that campus that would be being used.
And we started down that path a little while ago, and I'm sorry to have to say the master planning process for all the campuses hasn't really ever gotten off the ground because we've been dealing with fire, PSPS, pandemic, fire. So we've had a lot of emergencies that have come up that have delayed that process. So we do have committees that have been developed that are with our stakeholder groups by campus that include a teacher from every single department, parents, community members, and students that would be identified. It'd potentially be a committee of 25 to 30 people along with the consultants. And we all sit down and we really just walk through the campus. And that's basically the master planning process. And we go through what programs make sense, which programs don't make sense. And we really work together. And it's basically facilities kind of meeting in with ed services and designing a facility that works for our school district, for the programs that we want to offer, and making sure that the facilities can support that. So that very much would happen. That's the intent. Leah Woody, I don't understand. Could you
rewrite? Sure.
And thank you, Jared. I got your comment.
Any other board member comments? Oh, looks like we still have a few other comments, but go ahead. Any board members?
Just answer a question.
Hold on.
Any questions, board members? Any clarifying questions board members or student reps might have? Okay, Diane?
I was looking at the options. I've looked at them 3 times, 2 times before the meeting, and then the presentation at the meeting. And a couple of nights later after the presentation, I woke up and I was like, oh, that's what's been bothering me, but I didn't know what it was. It's a matter, at least to me, of equity. The annually options are about just one school moving to annually. That would be El Molino. The El Molino options are about 2 schools moving to the campus, annually, and also Laguna. And it seems that in order to really compare things, I would like to see another option from Steve Kwok, option 1, 2, 3, of Laguna and the district office staying where they are, and I know they'll get remodeled, and then Annalee moving to the El Molino campus.
I feel like that option is already on the table, only because all you have to do is remove Laguna and the district office from the costs. So I think somebody asked kind of a similar question earlier from the audience, but a little bit different. So we would just kind of take away the build out of El Molino. That includes, so then it was, I believe it was 95 million to do scenario 3 for El Molino, which would have been all of us on the same campus.
Right.
So we would back out those dollars, and we could really very easily do a takeoff on what that would cost. And my guess is the district would be roughly 2.5 million for the build out, and
5, okay.
Laguna would be roughly 6 million. But I'll have them confirm those numbers.
Yeah,
That's
if
me doing
yeah,
a takeoff on classrooms.
All the board members, yeah. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah.
Ted?
Thank you to the community for the questions and comments. And believe me, I listen to everybody. So before I make my decisions, I consider a student on the bus all the way from the ocean to Annalee or El Molino, the travel time, the environmental impact, the travel, that's all going in my consideration. The one thing is, though, the density of students someone brought up earlier. I remember seeing that map, and my comment was probably related to how we get the students from our feeder districts. I've noticed out in the lower Russian River that number of students has been going down by population at Guerneville and Monterey. The ones around Twin Hills and Gravenstein are down, but staying static. So there's a lot of information out there. We just need to grab it with Jeff and staff and give it back out to the public. The one difference for me might be, unfortunately, El Molino is in not in a city limit. There is no city council out there. They've talked about it many times along the Russian River redevelopment plan. If they were to incorporate, they would actually have more money to spend in a city district like Sebastopol does. So that's one thing that I want to consider is the relationship between the local entities around the campus, services, police services. We work on the sheriff's department at Elmo versus the Sebastopol Police Department is 10 feet away. So those are things that I am going to consider and stuff like that. So, but thank you for all the comments from everyone, and email and make more comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Ted.
More questions?
There are some more questions. Jenny, you want to read those for us?
Yes, Julie Aiello, how would consolidating schools affect the interdistrict transfer numbers?
So Jeff, you did some work on that before.
Yeah, so I looked back over the last 5 years of our interdistricts and just looked at the composition of them. And while we do get, quite a few kids, we've talked about it, over the last year, really, 450 students-ish, give or take, as far as interdistricts. The majority of them come from our feeder schools. So about 78 to 80% of our interdistrict transfers come from Willowside, Hillcrest, Twin Hills, right? They're already like on their way. So we don't get a ton of interdistricts that are coming to us at high school, right? They have kind of already made that decision that they're going to go that path. So a lot of the interdistrict numbers are already represented in our feeder school numbers, if that makes sense, right? Because those 80% of those kids are kind of already in that track. And as we track our feeder school, we're able to capture just based on the numbers. And like I said, I've looked back over the last 5 years, and it's pretty much the same every year, within a % or two, that between our feeder schools or our area charter schools, 80% of our interdistricts are coming from them. And then so really that just leaves, there's, the other 20%, about 100 kids or so that come from other area middle schools. We get about 15 or so as a whole, all 4 grades combined, 15 that started at another high school. So it's pretty interesting, the demographic of where they come, but I guess it made me feel a little bit more at ease that I think we have a better idea of the numbers because they enter our feeder system so soon.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know that that's a direct answer to the question of how would consolidation affect those numbers. If students are already making the choice to come to our schools when they're in our partner schools, I'm not sure how much it would affect their decision. So that's a question to see if we can find out. I'm not sure how it would affect it.
Well, am I right to say that, and maybe this helps, I don't know, but that if in fact students that are already in our schools that are already interdistrict transfers, they just will matriculate into our programs as they always have, and we're not going to turn away kids from interdistrict transfers because those are already in our numbers that we've already projected for our enrollment.
Right. I think the question wasn't about us turning them away, or I think it was more focused on would they decide not to come, but I don't know.
So do we have like an idea of capacity, on a site? Like, would we be maxed out?
Well, that's a great question. The scenario that we ran for option 1 was what would it take to fit everybody on the existing campus the way that it currently is. And if you recall, Annalee can house everyone with only adding, I think it was 1 or 2 portable classrooms. Yep. El Molino, we would have to add, I believe it was either 17 or 19. I can't recall off the top of my head, 19 portable classrooms in order to allow for housing. At that point, you'd be kind of at capacity. But again, the ultimate goal would be to make sure that you have enough room to grow, but that also that you're not too big. So it's finding the sweet spot. You have advantages and disadvantages to each campus with where they can build and how they can build, and if they have to go up versus out, if that makes any sense.
Was that including the portables for Laguna, the ones at Molino?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe it was all housing us in the first year, but some of that isn't even feasible. Like building out the district office where it was currently slated wouldn't be able to happen probably for a couple of years. So it might be a phased in approach.
Okay, thank you.
Next
Thank
question.
you, Angie. Oh, look at that. We got lots more questions. Okay.
Lynn Gleason, if the board votes for consolidation, sorry, what is the timing for determining which campus?
I think the board would make a decision when they felt they had enough public input to make that decision. I don't know, Jeannie, do you want to?
I think it remains to be seen. I think we need to be sure that we have all the information we need to be able to make the best informative decision that we can, and then we will proceed. That's a hard one. I can't tell you that.
This is Nicole Rathburn. I would like to echo this is a comment. I would like to echo the sentiment from last week's meeting. If consolidation is chosen, please consider a new school name, a mascot, etc., so that students have a unifying environment to help ease the transition. Next question is from Debbie Ramirez. Most of the questions tonight have been for decisions beyond the primary question regarding whether a site should be closed. Regarding question number 1, what, if any, alternatives are there in terms of balancing the budget besides closing one of the high school sites?
I'll take that one. That's a really great question because that's really been what I've been tasked with over the last 6 months since joining. I do plan on presenting out at the town hall meetings a little bit more detail about the budget and kind of why we're at this spot. But just a brief synopsis, even if you just take a look at our budget from this year, when you subtract out kind of like the one-time funds that we get, like the learning loss mitigation funds, when you take into account the fact that we have an overlap year of the parcel tax that we won't have, moving forward, the money that's in and out, like for transportation that we get from the state or the STRS on behalf, really that leaves us a budget about 25 million, give or take. When you just take out salaries, STRS and PERS contributions, statutory costs, benefits, books and supplies, that's about 20 million of that 25 or 21 million of that 25. And so those are things that are going to be costs and they're going to be expenses. That leaves us really about $4 million kind of left in our budget. And as many people have pointed out over the years, the service and operating budget is what it is. It tends to run a little bit over $5 million. This year, it's probably going to run about 5.8 just because we have some extra costs that are getting covered with the learning loss funds. Our target is kind of 5.6, 5.5 lower if we can. But even that is over the 4 million. So if you take away the one-time funds on an annual basis, we're kind of looking at this $1.5 million shortfall. And I've broken down. And one of the first things I did when I got here was I went over every single transaction in 2019 and 20 in the services budget, unrestricted budget, restricted budget. I know, what all the stuff is there, and are they frustrating sometimes? Sure, but transportation costs are what they are. Special ed costs that we have are what they are. Laura spoke earlier about our disproportionality problem. And so we have other programs and services that we have to bring in to support those students. Our property and liability insurance went up 160, 170% over the last 3 years. In dollar amount, it was about $260,000 in just the last 3 years due to the fires. So those are expenses that we can't really control. So, you know, are we always looking for curbing expenses and trying to get them down as much as we can? Absolutely. Is this one of the options, you know, that we're looking at? Absolutely. I think, you know, one of the things for me when I take a look at the budget and how to pare it down, it's kind of like the Swiss cheese approach, where every potential solution has holes in it. But if you back up the next solution with it, it has different holes in it. And then you back up the next one and the next one. And so it's going to take a combination of things. It's not going to be just one. It's not going to be just this conversation. So Debbie, you bring up a great point. I can tell you I'm consistently looking at it, constantly working at it. All the scenarios that we talked about in the Superintendent Budget Committee of which I was on, all the things that we did in place, you know, to even get through this year. But really what it boils down to, if we're just making it simple, the learning loss mitigation funds and the overlap year of the parcel tax are the only reason we will be positive this year. And so on an ongoing basis, we cannot count on those things. You know, earlier Prop 15 was mentioned. That's definitely something that is in consideration, but I also want to acknowledge about Prop 15 is that while 1.2 million is the high side of the expectation or the estimates, about 670,000 is the low side of the estimate. They don't, you know, so it's really hard to say we can target that number and count on it. It's going to take 1.5 years, 2 years to get assessments done. So it really won't even start to phase in until 22, 23, 2 years down the road, which is where we're looking at this. It won't fully phase in until 25, 26. And so, yes, all those things go in there. We are looking at all the other options. This is one of them. And the reason why we've gotten to this one is because we have explored all those others. And like I said, I do plan on reporting out in a little bit more detail for those that want about the services budget, because that has been a question in the past. I can lay out all our, you know, expenses and really kind of explain where we're at and why we're in the spot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to get the temperature of the board here. It looks like we have about 9 other questions or comments. Our 40 minutes is up. We had said that we would end it at 40 minutes. We do still have some more items we need to cover tonight on our agenda. I want to get the temperature of the board as to whether we actually finish here with our 40 minutes as we agendized. And then we'll just save those questions for the upcoming town hall, or do you want these people to be allowed to ask their questions? What's your thoughts, folks?
I'm okay with either. Since their questions are here before us, I would say let's answer them, but that's it for tonight, and then we'll be back next week to answer more questions.
Kelly, do you have a flavor?
I think let's cap it at these questions, because I'm actually looking and some of these aren't even necessarily questions. So hopefully we can, and maybe just try to get through the answers, you know. Yeah.
Ted, are you okay with that?
I can go either way. I'd like to see new people with new questions versus comment from the same person over and over again.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to say let's go ahead with these 9 comments, and then after the last one down here looks like it is from Hassana Meechan, and we're going to end with that question. If you have other questions, either email them to one of us board members, or please join us next week, and we will be live again at 6 o'clock to continue this discussion. Go ahead, Jen.
Next one is a comment from Robin Leon. I would like to recommend that a survey of families be done that looks at how many families might opt to leave the district if their home school is relocated, either to another district or to one of the variety of online options now available. This is another comment, Rochelle Stouffer. To Ted's comment, the closing of the hospital in Sebastopol was a similar situation. It takes less time to travel to Santa Rosa than to Sebastopol from the Russian River area. We would lose students from within our own district. A question from Lana McNamara. Has anyone looked at how many El Molino students will go elsewhere if we consolidate to AHS?
We have not.
Comment from Ross Bickford. They'll come if you build a 21st century facility. Julie McClelland. So the consolidation plans at this point are not contingent upon turning away all of our transfer students, as it has been discussed in the past.
No, they are not. The turning away the transfer students was if the district had decided to go basic aid. We are not talking about going basic aid. We're talking about accepting all of the students that are currently in our district and continuing to take inter-district transfers.
The next question is from Leah. Even though she said not to ask it, I'm going to. Has anyone considered traffic? When I go to Sebastopol at 7 a.m. from Grayton just to get to Laguna, Annalee, it takes 20 minutes to travel 6 miles. And as a part of any of the consolidation plans, we would be required to do a CEQA study. That's the California Environmental Quality Act. Part of that process is a traffic study. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't be a significant increase to traffic. Oftentimes, when you have a consolidation, that does happen, except with the CEQA process, you can have what they call an overriding mitigation measures, and that you just have to put measures in place. So we would go through that process as we vetted out which school we would consolidate into. So that's kind of the longer part of the conversation, but it's a good question. Julie Aiello. Yes, I was concerned there would be no room for transfers or students. Students would not want to attend a larger school that may or may not be farther away. That was a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Ross Bickford. You've not addressed the nursery school. That's district property as well. We consider the nursery school to be part of the district office complex, and currently they have a lease, and that lease is a 5-year lease right now, and it is breakable at the end of each annual term. So if the district office was part of what was declared surplus, we would give them appropriate notice. Tony, I don't know if you have any other comments, but that's. And our last question is from Hassana Meechan. I'm coming in late to the process, so sorry if this has already been answered. But when the stadiums were built a few years back, a big decision to put in a field turf was due to the fact that El Molino was on well and had water issues that could not sustain a grass field. Is that if that is the chosen campus, what is the remedy to this? I think you might have some of your information incorrect. Actually, Annalee is on a well. El Molino is on tertiary water from Forestville Water District. And the Forestville Water District for a long period of time during our drought years struggled to sustain their water tanks during the summer months. And so what would happen is they would cut off water to all their large scale facilities, including all of the schools that were using that to water their fields. And so that was a huge piece of why we went to turf fields. The only well that we have at El Molino is a 5,000 gallon irrigation well, and that waters all of our ornamental lawns. So like the front lawn and any of the little areas that you see around campus. 4 of the 2 softball fields and the baseball fields, both of the baseball fields are still watered with tertiary water. We don't have a redundant watering system out there. And we have, since we installed the turf field, have not had an issue with Forestville Water District turning off our water, but we've also had a lot more rain since then. And with respect to Annalee, we have, we're on well for all of our, for our irrigation, for all of our ornamental and fields. We also have a turf football field there as well. And I think the question you were potentially getting at here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're on domestic water for all of our toilet and sewer flushing. So that wouldn't be an issue. And that's at both campuses. So
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you everybody for your questions. That didn't take too many more minutes, and I appreciate that. I'm glad we were able to get through everybody's questions. So if in fact you have other further questions, please join us again next week or send us your comments and questions via email. You can send them to the district office, to Karen. Karen can get them to us. You could send them to Jenny, send them to us as board members, whatever you like, and we will bring them up at our next town hall meeting. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so with that, thank you for the input. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was
No,
just
sorry.
going to say the plan for the town hall meeting is to start the first one by providing additional information on the budget, on our declining enrollment, and what programs could look like, so that the board can have a more focused conversation on the first decision you have to make, which is whether or not we should consolidate campuses.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay. If you choose to leave us now at this point, please stay tuned and join us back again next week. And then again on November 4th, we will follow up with a follow-up town hall. Okay, so now we're going to move on to business services. We have consideration of our monthly budget updates. Jeff?
Yeah, so this is a nice, easy one, one that I bring to you every month. Just shows the budget updates. Actually, do you guys have to do your part?
Yes, we do. Thank you. Oh, you're so good. Thank you, Jeff.
Move we approve the monthly budget update.
Okay, I got Ted with the motion, and Kelly, I'll give you the second, okay? You both spoke at the same time.
Oh, really? I didn't even like.
That's okay. All righty.
So these are just the monthly budget updates for September, primarily just adjusting the budget for learning loss mitigation funds, getting the resources balanced, and just kind of updating as we go.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions from the public on this item? Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, seeing no questions, I will do our roll call vote. Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Diane Landry.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Jeff Wise.
Aye.
Satori McCullough.
Aye.
And looks like we lost Jeannie Broom. She probably had to do something for school.
She just texted me that, or she emailed us saying that her internet went out and she's really sorry. She's taking that as a sign to do her homework.
Okay.
No
No problem. Thank you, Jeannie. Okay. All righty. So motion carries. No issues. All right. Thank you, Jeff. We're going to now move on to human resources. Consideration of the monthly personnel report. Mia, let me get a motion. Can I get a motion, please?
I move we approve the monthly personnel report.
Thank you very much. Kelly, second.
Second.
Thank you, Diane. All right, go ahead, Mia.
Okay, this is the monthly personnel report, and I did update it on Monday, and Karen uploaded it onto the website. But I just want to note that the addition that I made was the employment of Sandy Frey, who is our vice principal at Hanley High School, and she's currently an 80% in that position, and we're adding a 20% English independent study section to her assignments. So that is the only addition to the personnel report.
Well, that's great. What a great addition. Okay. Is there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, I see no hands raised, no Q&A. Any comment from the board? Hearing none, I will do roll call. Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Diane Landry.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Jeff Wise.
Aye.
And Satori McCullough.
Aye.
Karen, I need to ask you, on the last item of Jeff's report, did I roll call myself? Did I? Okay, I couldn't remember. Kind of hard when you have to ask yourself to vote. Okay. Let me get back on my agenda here. Okay, and then next is for the umpteenth time.
This is going to be the last time, Jeannie.
Consideration of approval of teachers outside their credentialed area. No problem, Mia. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that.
Go, Diane.
Go ahead, Diane.
I move what you said.
Yeah.
Okay. Consideration of approval outside teachers assigned their outside of their credential area. Okay, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Angie. All right, go ahead, Mia.
Okay, I do want to say that this is a very unusual year, that we've had a lot of late hires, and that's why we keep seeing this item come back. So this month we have 2, and I did update it on Monday. I added Sandy Frey because she has a multiple subject credential and a special ed credential. So we're assigning her outside of her credential area to teach the one section of English independent study. And then we also have one of our new hires, Jonathan Wright, who is going to be teaching 3 sections of academic support. So I'm very confident this is the last time you're going to see this item this year.
No problem. Okay, is there any comment from anyone on this item? Board member or public? Okay, hearing none, I will do roll call. Kelly Noe.
Aye.
Diane Landry.
Aye.
Ted Walker.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. Jeff Wise.
Aye.
Satori McCullough.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. All right. So next on the agenda is just looking at our future agenda items. We have a couple of town halls coming up on the 21st and then one on November 4th. Our regular board meeting is November the 18th. And we also have some new board policies coming up. And I do know that, Ted, you wanted to discuss the issue of serving alcohol at one of our campuses. And we are going to also put that on the agenda for November, just so you're aware. Okay. All righty. Does anybody else have anything? Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we are recording tonight's board meeting, and we will be posting it on the front page of the agenda. We're working on our YouTube channel. It's a little complicated when you're in an education facility, or if not, sorry, I've been up since 4:30. It's a little complicated, so we're working on getting that live so that we can put everything up there as opposed to hosting it on our cloud, because it is a 3.5-hour meeting, takes up a little bit of space.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a couple more coming up. Okay, thank you, Jenny, very much. And best wishes to your daughter, by the way. And thank you very much for being here. I wasn't expecting that we were going to get to see you, so I'm glad that you were able to join us and manage this. You're doing a fantastic job. Okay, thank you, everybody, for the good of cause. And we will see you all again next week, 6 o'clock.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
I'm going to leave this.
Good night, ladies.
Bye, Angie.
I'm having tech issues. It's ridiculous. My earphones like cut the sound. I had to leave and come back. I'm like,
oh no.